My colleague Rajesh Pawar, in fact, is joining me live from Kyiv. Rajesh, it's been a month long today. It is the second month of this war that we're entering. What is the situation on the ground in terms of Ukraine's continued resistance of the Russian attacks?
Look, last 2 days in Kyiv witnessed heavy shelling by artillery and by rockets on the outskirts of the city, in the north and in the east. Besides this, the ground offensive from both sides is seeing a kind of lull in last 3 to 4 days because everybody was waiting and watching what is going to happen in Brussels when the NATO members meet with President Joe Biden, which was also attended by the Ukrainian President Zelensky virtually, that meeting. It appears that nothing much was offered in that meeting for Ukraine as such, though there were promises for better security of NATO countries, Poland and other neighboring countries to Ukraine. But for Ukraine as such, there was nothing much in that, especially with regards to war and its defense. And the key demands of Ukraine, which were about military aircrafts, enforcing a no-fly zone or supply of more latest hardware, military hardware, none of this seemed to have happened. And it looks like that President Zelensky right now is quite dejected with this. And I see that in coming days, probably there'll be some kind of negotiations between the Russians and Ukrainians, and it will move in a positive direction towards the end of the war. Over to you.
Okay, so you're seeing that there's a possibility that there could be negotiations that could happen directly between President Zelensky and President Putin in the coming days?
Look, the situation with Ukraine right now is it's any common man's guess that right now he's dejected, he's isolated, and on their own, Ukrainians cannot sustain this war. Russia is still a military superpower. And as per a Pentagon report, they have not used 90% of their arsenal and their army till now, and it is intact. So, and Ukraine understands that. So without help of West and America, which they were hoping something really substantial will come from this meeting, which happened yesterday in Brussels, but it has not happened. So, and I think it is very much Ukraine understands that as this war progresses, they will have more devastation, more people will become refugees, and they are being taken back by years as far as their economic situation is concerned. So I think it's a logical guess that probably now Zelensky will soften his stand and there will be negotiations very soon happening.
Okay, is that the sense that you got, Rajesh, yesterday when you heard President Zelensky, of course, address the extraordinary NATO summit as well, where he basically, of course, sent out a very strong message to NATO saying never again say that our army is not fit or capable to join the NATO. We've shown that more than enough. But clearly, it was a very strong message that you've not helped us.
Look, he has been very unrealistic right from the beginning. NATO never made this promise that they will intervene in Ukraine at any stage, or they'll put boots on the ground, or in any case, they will come in any situation which puts them in direct confrontation with Russia militarily. They never made this promise. However, Zelensky kept trying, the information warfare, streaming these pictures of injured children, schools bombarded, hospitals bombarded, maternity wards bombarded. These pictures were screened around the world on television sets. He tried to put pressure on the governments in the West through the public opinion in those countries. He has tried everything possible. Then there was this bogey of thermobaric bombs being used or chemical weapons likely to be used. It was all to create a public opinion in the West and somehow force these countries, the governments of these countries in the West and America, which have flatly refused to get involved in this conflict, to drag them into this conflict, because Ukraine on its own cannot take on Russia, and now they have refused to be dragged in any case. So that puts the situation. Zelensky realizes he has tried every trick in the book. He has not succeeded. So now the only thing remaining is he is saying, because they have refused, that he will not be taken into NATO, Ukraine. So then after that he said, we don't want to be a part of NATO. It's something like grapes are sour. They don't want you. Then you say, we don't want to join it. So it doesn't make much sense. And I think now he's realized he has tried every trick. The only solution left, if he doesn't want people to suffer more in Ukraine, he will go for now some kind of negotiated settlement with Russia.
Okay. So Rajesh Pawar, they're telling us that there's a possible softening of stance by President Zelensky in this ongoing war against, Russia, with Russia, and Ukraine possibly could be looking at possible negotiations in order to end this war with Russia directly, possibly. Rajesh, thank you so much for joining us with all of those details. Now, in fact, our soldier reporter Rajesh Pawar has been getting us reports from Ground Zero. Here's a report from Kyiv that is bracing for attacks from all corners by the Russian army.
I'm on a checkpost here which has been prepared to counter any kind of attack coming on this particular road. Here, if you see behind me, these white sandbags, this is where soldiers will take position in case anything comes from that direction towards this checkpost. And these black and these iron hedgehogs you see, they are basically for anti-tank obstacle. Let me show you what a soldier will see through these sandbags in case enemy is coming on this road from the other side. I'll just show you around, take you how it will feel. This is how it will look to a soldier from these sandbags, and he can see any tanks coming from there, any soldiers coming from there, so that he can take aim through this hole and he is safe while he's doing so. This is how it looks, and this is on top. So soldier will be totally safe. He'll be able to see through this gap in the sandbags and will be able to aim his rifle or maybe even an anti-tank weapon through this hole, and will be able to protect this road or deny its use to the enemy for a long time. And these kind of obstacles have been created all over Kyiv city now. Entire city on main roads, after every 200 to 300 meters, you see something like this. Lot of sandbags, concrete blocks, and these hedgehogs all over the city now. This is Rajesh Pawar from Kyiv on 29th day of Russia.
The humanitarian assistance that Poland has provided to more than 2.1 million people who fled from Ukraine. President Biden will land at Raze and he will visit one of those humanitarian camps there. He will give, he will pat Poland on the back. He will promise additional humanitarian assistance. But beyond that, how much in terms of military deployment will take place? President Biden will visit troops of the 82nd Airborne Division who are deployed here. There are additional American troops likely to come. How much of that will deter Russia remains the big question. Also because, Polemy, at this point of time, peacekeeping forces will not be sent to Ukraine. That's something that America has made very clear, and that perhaps was something that both Poland and Ukraine were looking forward to. So the situation, even in Poland, is a little tense. Some measures have been taken by Poland to send across a very strong message. 45 Russian diplomats and their families have been expelled. The account of the Russian mission here has been sealed because the impression is, the word that's going out is that they were financing terror. That's the terminology used by Poland. So strong message being sent, but reassurance also sought. Polemy.
Right, so a strong message being sent, but how much is that going to possibly help Ukraine? Gaurav, for instance, because you said that America will not be sending peacekeeping forces to Ukraine. Ukraine has been wanting a no-fly zone to be declared. It has been wanting boots on the ground as well. That is the sort of appeal that it has been making to the NATO. But it was very clear from the kind of, the frustration that President Zelensky showed yesterday while addressing the extraordinary NATO summit. It's clear that that is not happening. So is it possible that Ukraine will now soften its stand and then look for negotiations directly with Russia?
So President Zelensky has been blowing hot, blowing cold on this. There are times he sounds very soft and mellow and wants a negotiated settlement. And there are times that he insists that we are not inferior to NATO forces and NATO has to help us. And he wants a virtual blank check in terms of surface-to-air missiles and anti-ship missiles, saying that we are successfully stalling the Russian advance. If you give us more weapons, we will actually create history. But the situation as of now on ground is he's lost the access to sea completely. Sea of Azov and Black Sea, he doesn't have access to it. Humanitarian assistance that was coming in, and according to the European Union, the wheat supply for the internally displaced people in Ukraine, shiploads of those wheat supply cannot get to Ukraine because Russia is not permitting it. That's what European Union claims. As far as military hardware is concerned, Poland is the only route, and Raze is the place from where some of these supplies have been going into Ukraine. Should the Russians bomb Lviv and that access, then Poland and then Ukraine will be completely cut off, and then the situation for them becomes extremely precarious. How long can they stall the Russian advance subsequently? And this is the biggest threat that Ukraine faces at this point of time. food shortages already being reported, not just in Mariupol, but also in certain other pockets. There is a shortage also of ammunition in some areas that is being reported by local media, while they say they have their ATGMs and SAMs in place, and that is why Russian advance has been slow. But if you also notice on ground, Polemy, you have the Russians who are digging in their trenches on the outskirts of Kyiv. What does that indicate? The Russians are in this for the long haul, and it's the army with a bigger supply chain. It's the army with bigger pockets. It's the army with bigger food packets that can survive, and those like Ukraine may just receive the short end of the stick here.
Okay, so Russia is digging trenches quite literally because it is in it for the long haul. Can Ukraine continue to resist the Russian invasion and takeover possibly of capital city Kyiv? Gaurav, thank you so much for joining us. We'll of course keep coming back to you through the day for more updates on President Joe Biden's visit to Poland as well. That's a wrap on this bulletin. Stay tuned. News and updates will continue on the other side of this break.